Credit where credit's due. Believe it or not, a Fox News host had an excellent interview with Donald Trump's former Attorney General, Bill Barr, who recently said that he'd support Trump in the election, despite repeatedly and harshly criticizing Trump. And the Fox host in question repeatedly pressed Barr to reconcile these irreconcilable positions. And Barr's hyperpartisan loyalties and terrible logic revealed themselves in short order, and the whole thing was glorious, and we have to talk about it. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, we have several clips to watch in this video. As a matter of fact, I wish we could watch the whole thing. It's about 10 minutes, and I hesitate to say masterclass, but it is truly an excellent interview between Fox News host Neil Cavuto and former Trump Attorney General Bill Barr, both of whom have featured in many Pondering Politics videos. Jessica Tarlov is the best thing to come out of Fox News, there's no question. But she is a powerhouse liberal commentator. Cavuto is a reporter, and he's basically assumed the role that Chris Wallace used to have at Fox News, which is like the lone break check from the hard news section, against the right-wing momentum. And this entire interview, I mean, he even says it. He goes, I hate to belabor the point, but he does. He is struggling to understand the irreconcilable positions that Bill Barr has when it comes to Donald Trump. And he gives Barr numerous opportunities to set the record straight. And I think Barr does a terrible job. We're going to play some of these clips and unpack them together.
You, for all of your problems with your former boss and all the issues that he raised in office and all the damage you argue he had done, are still supporting him over Joe Biden. That surprised you. It didn't surprise me. I know you had said before you would support the Republican ticket, and you are. But he's heading that ticket for all those warts and problems you cited. Why?
Right. Well, yeah, I'm not happy with the choice. I think this is a terrible choice for the country, but it is a choice. At the end of the day, we have to select between two different individuals. And I've said all along that I think it's my duty to pick the person I think will do the least harm to the country. And I think that to me, that's clearly Trump and a Republican administration, which I think is important. I think, getting control over the border, stopping the lawlessness in our cities, building up the strength of the United States in an ever more dangerous world, stop the avalanche of regulation that is strangling business and our technological superiority. These are critical things that have to be done, and I think that we'll get them done under a Trump administration. At the same time, I think.
So we're going to stop right there for just a second. So the logic that Bill Barr offers, which is, listen, I'm not happy about this choice, but I think that I have an obligation to effectively choose the lesser evil. I'm with him 100% there. That is sound logic, makes absolute sense. And that's what I encourage people who are eligible voters to do if they have reservations about President Biden and the Democrats. Where Barr loses me is this idea that Donald Trump is the lesser evil. And so he says, listen, we got to, fight crime in lawless cities. Crime is radically, we're seeing a reduction in crime year over year over year under the Biden administration. Crime spiked. Actually, on Bill Barr's watch, believe it or not, when he was Attorney General in 2020 under Donald Trump. It's been falling under President Biden. The southern border situation, Trump killed a bipartisan conservative Senate border bill, which would have, at least according to the Republicans, addressed a lot of these issues because they were conservative provisions for the most part. So Barr is just saying a lot of empty words. We got to do this. And he also has said in the past that the reason he doesn't like Trump is because you won't get Republican policies if Trump is president because he's too stupid and too chaotic to govern effectively. Now he's saying the conservative policies will happen under Donald Trump. So he's actually walking back things he said in the past. But we'll continue.
The Biden administration is, in fact, the greater threat to democracy. I think they have a totalitarian temper. They have bought into the progressive movement, and they're trying to squelch opposition and freedom of speech.
Offers no examples for any of that. He actually says that the thing that I think is completely inarguable on, like if you're going to defend Trump on anything, the idea that he's actually good for democracy or as good for democracy or better for democracy than President Biden and the Democrats, it's absurd. Barr actually takes that proposition and he says, listen, they have a totalitarian temperament. And Donald Trump is the one with a totalitarian temperament. Donald Trump is the one who says he wants to be dictator, then dictator for a day. President Biden has said nothing like that. Donald Trump is the one who is part of Project 2025, which is this idea that, this entire conservative, comprehensive effort to radically reshape the executive branch and the relationship between the executive branch and the other two branches. By the way, something that Bill Barr supports, because Bill Barr is a staunch conservative and a supporter of unitary executive theory, this idea that the president has to be as maximally powerful as humanly possible. Of course, a conservative president, right? Like he would not take that approach for a liberal, progressive, or just a Democratic president, period, right? That's just something, power is just something for conservative presidents to wield. And he says, squelch free speech. Donald Trump had, when he was president of the United States, the Trump administration, perhaps when Bill Barr was in office, made requests to Twitter to take down information. We found that out accidentally through the Twitter files, which were otherwise aimed at the Biden administration, but they let that slip, that Trump did that. Trump was the one who wanted to open up libel and defamation laws to sue the media. Donald Trump is the one who says that if he becomes president again, he's going to use his Department of Justice to go after MSNBC and other media outlets who criticize him. He's the one who's referred to the press as the enemy of the people. So who's the one here who's actually interested in squelching free speech, to say nothing of what Donald Trump has done to the likes of Bill Barr and other Republicans who have spoken out against him? He's tried to censor, crush, and cancel them. Nonsense stuff coming from Bill Barr. But we'll continue.
How about getting people to serve in his administration? You said that would be a difficulty if it came to that. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think, I think most people recognize it may be hard to get people to serve in the administration, and he'll probably put a premium on people who, he feels would be more subservient to him, and that's an area of concern. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, serving in his administration, I was fine with his policies.
Right.
I think his policies were good policies. My problems came with his behavior, which I found very troubling after the election. And I think, I think the idea that he's going to be an autocrat and take over power like some right-wing dictator is not the threat facing our country. The threat facing our country is from the far left and the drift that's been occurring toward really a socialistic system, and one that brooks no opposition, one that cancels people, that has only one viewpoint taught in colleges, that tries to push parents out of the picture when it comes to the education of their children. It's a heavy-handed bunch of thugs, in my opinion, and that's where the threat is.
So again, Donald Trump's the one who not only denied the outcome of a free and fair election, tried to litigate against it. He's refused to concede. He was responsible for January 6th. Bill Barr's conceded all of these things. But in response to that, Bill Barr says, well, the country is heading in a socialist direction. Again, even the few examples he deigns to offer are spurious. What does the Biden administration have to do with college campuses? He establishes no relationship there. That's assuming we take anything he says about college campuses at face value. Again, this idea where it brooks no dissent. Donald Trump brooks dissent? Really? You dissented in the Trump administration. How did that go for you? And how have you been treated afterwards, Bill Barr? We see and hear nothing like that from the Biden administration. So again, this idea that Biden is less tolerant of dissent than Trump is patently false. But again, we'll continue.
If he is, I don't want to belabor the point, but if he is Attorney General going to be someone who might want to extract revenge for the way he's been treated, or a vendetta towards some Democrats have claimed, he says that's not the case, that his goal and his priority is going to be success. So we'll take him at face value for that. But do you think a cabinet or surrounding yourself with individuals who might be sycophants is up to the task of keeping that kind of behavior in check?
I think some of the people that may end up there are, and we'll see. I think an important indication will be his choice of vice president and what kind of person he picks there. I hope he.
You see what I'm saying? So like even the long pause where he has to be like, maybe. I mean, of course, these are serious concerns. And Cavuto is being gentle, but he's being persistent. That's why he says, I hate to belabor the point. The entire interview is this, folks. For 9 minutes, this is all they talk about. It's not a softball interview at all. Cavuto, in a very gentle but persistent way, basically asks Barr to reconcile these irreconcilable positions. Like, okay, you refer to the Trump administration. Well, what happens if Trump puts people in place who are loyal to him? And Barr concedes it. Yeah, whoever Trump puts in place, he's going to put a premium on personal loyalty to him. Well, that's why Cavuto says, okay, well then, if people are occupying your former role, for example, as Attorney General, somebody like Mike Davis or somebody like, Matt Gaetz or whoever, who are just personally loyal to Donald Trump over the Constitution and don't do what you did, Bill Barr, and push back, what does that mean? Well, maybe there'd be some who would push back. We'll just have to wait and see. Why would we take the risk? For what reason would we ever take the risk in a situation like that? And it's just absolute nonsense. One more clip.
Appear to be the case, but if he is convicted of any of the charges, not only in this particular trial going on, but anything going forward that might get adjudicated before the election, does that change things for you?
Well, it's 7 months. A lot of, we're living in a very crazy time,
right,
and it's hard to predict what's going to happen. I can't envision a set of circumstances where I would support Biden. He'd have to do some radical changes of his orientation for me to even conceive of that.
Even with a conviction?
Well, it depends. I mean, the thing now is a travesty. I mean, if he's convicted in New York, that thing is a travesty. It'll ultimately be overturned. That will come after the election. But in my opinion, there's no crime there at all. Okay. This is something that I'll have to look and see what the situation is in each case.
So again, good questions from Neil Cavuto. Again, the whole thing from start to finish, it's about nothing else other than to get Bill Barr to reconcile these irreconcilable positions. And I think Barr does a terrible job, because he's gone on the record to say that the documents case at Mar-a-Lago, the January 6th case, at the Fulton County, Georgia case, that these things have real merit and pose a real threat to Donald Trump. And now he's saying, well, we'll have to see. Folks, this is what I mean when I say that I don't think there's such a thing as a good Republican politician, a good Republican elected official, a good Republican political figure, period. Because the ones who ultimately put country above party have been excised from the GOP. Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger were censured. They either didn't seek re-election or they lost re-election as a result of this. Bill Barr, who is right now a civilian, I mean, he's not an elected official. He's a former attorney general. He has the opportunity here to say, listen, actually, no, despite my enormous policy disagreements with President Biden, at the end of the day, I recognize that Biden is loyal to the constitutional order, as historian John Meacham recently said on Real Time with Bill Maher about Bill Barr and Bill Barr's recent incongruous decision. But instead, at the end of the day, Bill Barr has shown that despite the fact that he's smart enough to recognize and principled enough, I suppose, to recognize the issues with Donald Trump, the moral issues with Donald Trump, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, he's just going to knowingly fall in line because he can't abide ever supporting a Democrat. He puts his party above his country every time. And I think it's abundantly clear that there is nothing that a Republican could do to lose Bill Barr's support at the end of the day when the opposition's a Democrat. Perhaps one Republican could lose Bill Barr's support compared to another Republican, but at the end of the day, if it's a choice between a Republican and anything else, Bill Barr will always back the Republicans. And again, Fox News host Neil Cavuto doesn't freak out or anything like that, but you can hear it in his voice, you can hear it in his questions, you can see it in his face. He's just disbelieving and is struggling to understand Bill Barr's logic, as are we all. Let me know what you think in the comments.